All right, guys, so with the Democrats getting spanked in Virginia when they were predicted to win by a somewhat comfortable margin and almost losing New Jersey, it looks like they're probably going to pull that state out by a razor-thin margin, even though, again, they were projected to blow out the Republican challenger there as well, and also having some other, smaller elections, but some state district elections where Republicans are flipping blue districts, right? For example, there's a district in New Jersey where a truck driver who spent about $150 or so on his campaign is about to take down a establishment Democrat that's been in that seat for a long time, one of the most powerful lawmakers in the state of New Jersey. You also had a Hispanic GOP representative flip a Democrat seat in San Antonio, right? Deep blue San Antonio. So obviously there's a red wave happening across the country that's not just about Virginia, right? It's not just about Loudoun County. I think that's a lot of it, but it's not just there, right? And this is a big problem for the Democrats, and that has led to infighting. Now, I'm going to break down this infighting, right? And the moderates and progressives going back and forth with each other, and I'm going to do some political analysis in terms of what the Democrats might do. Now, it's not what I want them to do or what I hope they do. I'm simply saying what they might do in order to try to right the ship before 2022, because if they don't, 2022 is going to be a bloodbath. So, as of right now, again, the Democrats are in crisis mode, and they're essentially blaming each other over this, and they're trying to decide whether or not they should revert back to the middle or to go all in on the progressive/socialist agenda of the Build Back Better plan. And I'm just going to summarize this article for the sake of time. But essentially what's happening here, guys, is that moderates are saying that, hey, one of the reasons why we lost is because Joe Biden hasn't got anything done. He hasn't accomplished anything. The reason why he hasn't accomplished anything is because the progressives want everything, right? They want the $1 trillion bipartisan bill to be passed with the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan that is now $1.75 trillion that Joe Manchin still doesn't want. But they want all that to be passed at once. And because they want all that to be passed at once, essentially that means that Joe Biden hasn't accomplished anything, and that has demoralized the base. Now, the progressives, their counter argument to that is that no. They're not at fault. It's actually the moderate Democrats' fault because they're not making federal issues the forefront of the campaign, right? They're not making all the things that, progressives talk about, child care and, all this other stuff, right? They're not making the progressive agenda the forefront of what the Biden administration is pushing, what the Democrats are pushing, right? And because of that, they're saying that that's why they lost, right? So both sides are blaming each other, and they're going back and forth over this and trying to decide who's at fault and what direction to go in. Ultimately, at the end of the day, though, it really comes down to Joe Biden and the Democrat leadership, right, in regards to where they're going to go from here. So I want you guys to actually listen to Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden react to this, and then I'm going to give you guys my analysis. Take a look.
Very sad, very healthy, great leader, and he was a great governor of the state.
Does he change the agenda for the House now?
No.
Are the negotiations wrapped up? What about immigration? Is that settled?
I'll start all the way at the end.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it.
Well, you're not all the way at the end, but that's okay. You're up.
As leader of the Democratic Party, how much responsibility do you take for the dismal results in Virginia and beyond last night?
Well, look, yesterday reminded me of that one of the sacred rights we have is to be able to go out and cast our votes. And remember that we all have an obligation to accept the legitimacy of these elections. I was talking to Terry to congratulate him today. He got 600,000 more votes than any Democrat ever has gotten. We brought out every Democrat about there was, more votes than ever has been cast for a Democratic incumbent. I'm not incumbent, a Democrat running for governor. And no governor in Virginia has ever won when he's of the same, or he or she's the same party as the sitting president. What I do know is, that people want us to get things done. They want us to get things done. And that's why I'm continuing to push very hard for the Democratic Party to move along and pass my infrastructure bill and my Build Back Better bill. I think if we think about what we're talking about here. People are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, from COVID to school to jobs to a whole range of things, and the cost of a gallon of gasoline. And so if I'm able to sign into law my Build Back Better initiative, I'm in a position where you're going to see a lot of those things ameliorated quickly and swiftly. So that has to be done.
Mr. President, given what you said, do you take some responsibility, and do you think that Terry McAuliffe would have won if your agenda had passed before Election Day?
Well, I think it should have passed before Election Day, but I'm not sure that I would be able to have changed the number of very conservative folks who turned out in the red districts who were Trump voters, but maybe.
You won the state by 10 points, Mr. President.
No, I know we did, but I was running against Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President. What should Democrats possibly do differently to avoid similar losses in November, especially as Republicans are now successfully running on culture war issues and false claims about critical race theory?
Well, I think we should produce for the American people. Look, one of the things that is important to understand, if they pass my legislation, we're going to be able to reduce the price. People are going to see a reduction in the price of the drugs they have to get, because Medicare will be able to negotiate and lower the price of drugs. If they pass my legislation, you're going to see that nobody, and some of you who have children in daycare or children in child care, you're paying up to $14,000 a year if you live here. You will never have to pay that much money if you live in Washington or wherever you live, no more than 7% of your income. They're going to see that, they'll get tax breaks, and genuine tax breaks. If that's Trump, to tell them I'm busy. Bad joke.
What's your message, though, for Democratic voters, especially black voters, who see Republicans running on race, education, lying about critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't have an effective way to push back on that?
Well, I think that the whole answer is just to speak the truth, lay out where we are. Look, I'm convinced that if you look at everything from my view on the criminal justice system to my view on equal opportunity to my view on economic issues and all the things I have and what I've been pushing in legislation, each of the elements are overwhelmingly popular. We have to speak to them, though. We have to speak to them and explain them.
All right, guys. So as you can see, that is Joe Biden, whom seems to be leaning into the progressive argument, right? Him saying, you know what? We need to pass a Build Back Better plan, right? We need both things, and we need to pass them in order to help solve these problems, right? Like inflation, supply chain issues, all that other stuff. Now, I'm not convinced personally that Biden's Build Back Better plan is going to actually solve those problems. I actually think he's probably going to make it worse. But that's what he's saying. So it sounds to me that Biden's getting desperate. Right? He's getting desperate. He's getting so desperate that, him historically being a more conservative, moderate Democrat, he's just went all in on, you know what, we just got to go the progressive route on this. At least that's what he's saying, right? That's what he's saying. But the problem for Biden is that I'm not sure if that will work, right? I'm not sure if putting $3 to $5 trillion more dollars into a inflation economy is the way to go. But ultimately, we'll probably never find out, because there's no way on God's green earth that after what happened in Virginia, Joe Manchin is going to get on board with his Build Back Better plan. He literally has no incentive to do so. If anything, he has more of incentive to keep distancing himself from the Democrat agenda, right? Like, imagine, why would Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema now negotiate on anything when it comes to the Build Back Better thing? Why would they do any of that? There's no reason for them to. They live in purple states, right? They live in purple states. If Virginia or New Jersey is telling them anything, it's that, hey, we might want to be a little bit more conservative than we already are, right? We might not want to pass anything in the Build Back Better plan. So again, I don't think that Biden has a snowball's chance in hell of getting that bill passed, even a $1.75 trillion version of it now as it is, right? And if he continues to go down this path of trying to align with the progressives, because he does need to get his base excited, so I understand why he's doing it. He's going to risk not getting anything passed because, again, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema don't have any incentive to actually work with him on a Build Back Better plan, right? So, hey, his best bet would probably be to pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill by itself just to say he's done something, right? And to maybe make some moves on student loans. Not saying that that's a preferable policy. I'm just saying in his situation, I wouldn't be surprised if he was to do that, considering how he needs something to excite the progressive base, because he needs them in order to win in 2022. But with that being said, I think, again, what the Democrats are missing here is, like Van Jones said, they're just out of touch.
I think that the Democrats are coming across in ways that we don't recognize, that are annoying and offensive and seem out of touch in ways that I don't think show up in our feeds when we're looking at our kind of echo chamber.
Yeah, Van Jones is 100% right. Van Jones is one of those characters where he'll say something off the wall that I completely disagree with, and then in the next sentence he'll say something I 100% agree with. But yeah, he's right. Democrats are just out of touch, and that includes progressives. Progressives had this idea that they think that all of our policies are popular. Therefore, if you just pass our agenda, then we're magically going to win. And it's like, okay, maybe your policies may be popular as individual policies, but that doesn't mean that people want it all in one package, right? But other than that, the Virginia election was not about the Build Back Better plan, right? It's not about progressive policies. What Virginia was about was local politics, right? And the GOP have always been better, in my opinion, at local politics than they have national politics, because conservatism, right, the way it currently is today in Republican politics, is more state focused, right? It's more state focused, it's more grassroots stuff. So the Democrats really lost because, one, they won't acknowledge reality, right? That critical race theory is actually, being implemented in schools, whether you want to call it that or something else. It's racial indoctrination, right? Telling parents that doesn't exist, ignoring their issues, telling people that the government know what's best for you and your kids, the mandates, all those things that are local issues, I think was the number one factor. I think the secondary stuff was the fact that Biden is failing in the background. And least of all was the fact that he can't get his agenda passed, because even if he got his agenda passed, I'm not sure if that's making our situation better, right? And I think that that's the issue with the Democrats. The issue with Democrats, again, is like Van Jones, they're just out of touch. Even in what Joe Biden said, when he was asked about critical race theory, he has this journalist frame the issue as, well, it's just a fake issue. It's made up. Well, Biden should have came out and said, like, listen, guys, we got to stop all this anti-white politics, right? We got to stop this race politics. We got to stop doing that, because it's not working, right? Suburban white women won the GOP Virginia, right? Like, that's just reality situation. White people are still most of the population. So you cannot alienate them by being flat out anti-white. That ain't going to work, because the population numbers just work out to a point where it's like, no, the most important part of the electorate is actually white people, whether people want to acknowledge that or not. That's just what it is. And this Democrat strategy of being anti-white, we're going to appeal to guilty white people, right? Guilty white liberals and so-called people of color. You don't have the population numbers for that, right? Because there are people who are moderate, who are just like, you know what? I'm not on board with people who are just actively seem to be against my race, right? Again, I'm just saying, I'm just keeping it 100, right? And I think that's, again, where the Democrats are out of touch at. They don't acknowledge what the real issue is, and they try to act like the culture war is not important when it is. People want to preserve the culture of this country, right? People want to preserve their way of life. That's what people want. That is something that's ingrained in every single last one of us, and the Democrats represent an opposition to that. And there's going to be strong pushback against that, and I think that's what happened in Virginia. But again, you have the moderates and the progressives fighting with each other, both of whom are wrong about what really happened. Biden's up here, again, not acknowledging the real issue. So to me, it seems like the Democrats, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change for them. Because again, if what happened in Virginia is any indication of how people across the country are currently feeling, is over for them in 2022. I don't care what legislation they pass. If they continue with this anti-white politics, everything is racist, they're not going anywhere, because these culture war issues matter. And people on the left, they have racial extremists that is running that party off a cliff. And until they can rein those racial extremists in, the Democrat Party is doomed. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.